Chapter 1 Cetea Fulminare. The whitest white of plain ice, lit up by blue neon lights, marked the landing. Rising Everests of azure dissected the horizon line, forming an ever-enclosing cup, brimming with civilization. A colony of complexity, like a jagged black sea of pillars upon dark towering shapes, aroused in waves, flowing unbound upon the skin, all from the biggest of spectacle to the smallest of speckle, respiring. Puzzles of tubes laced the web, forming arteries like diverging highways, cutting across the dark cast. The perfect motherboard of efficiency, technology, and intelligence awaited. Upon the array of vacant X-pads, a small earthquake came and went. Walking out the oozing erect interplanetary rocket, a line of ghostly spacesuits crammed, looking fleetingly from left to right, then right to left. Continue presently, BR Group 32. A lively feminine voice called through each of the members' shining visors. Guided across the ice by a silver hovering drone burning a red light, the group took to the semi-submerged walking tubes. And as white was enclosed in white, they cautiously spilled down a set of stairs, through two sets of sliding doors, and straight, all hiding their nerves like students on a field trip. The voice yet again echoed between the group, as a change of clothes was performed. Many, seeking a good impression, held the simple task with full focus, while some, with a lifted gaze, caught drawings of high art hung perfectly scattered on the blank walls. White, grey, blue, and black, strung by striking red, dominated the palettes of tragedy, inviting a reaction. Every figure and stare, very unknowingly, giving clues to be observed by divinity. One of those curious members was Eric, remaining at last fixated by his thoughts upon the paintings. He suddenly felt a sense of forgetting, and swiftly turned to catch up with the newborn navy blue uniformity. The group walked into an oval gazebo of black glass. A counting number flared on the white ceiling as they entered. 12 it reached as the doors mechanically merged with the walls. Sky blue chairs formed another smaller oval around the middle, and like a game, increasing steps surrounded the center, each pair of boots looking for the most convenient of neighbors. Judging by quick looks and a pious prejudice without exception, the comedy reached climax before the rumble had them all on their bum. The chilling atmosphere stuck as frost on the glass. Eric's every breath hurt, so he kept them shallow and in effect racing, all coming out as nervous pale clouds. Some faint whispers were shared somewhere behind them, but it was all too faint. The paintings had momentarily estranged him from the group, and since small talk serves no purpose, he was to do what any sound genius would. But this time, a small warm cloud of words reached his left ear. Did you see the sun panels? Light and soft, the words raised his stooping neck. With a surprised turn, he could feel the syrup brown flowing hair, her gentle skin, and those green eyes. But like an embarrassed actor, broken from his role, Eric returned his gaze to the black floor. No, he said. Small chatter was climbing in the room, as Eric and the girl named Sandra exchanged names. Fascinating how a simple improvised game of music shares composed the future. It's not long before the sun will be 85% harvested by the Dyson spheres, Sandra said. Looking down, she added, then only Earth will remain enlightened in our solar system. Welcome, BR Group 32. Your lecture is now to begin. All heads turned and looked to the white ceiling, where the feminine voice started. but nothing there. Accelerated falling begins in 20 seconds. Gaily it drew again, but now fooling no one. With secured seatbelts sitting tightly around their waists and over their shoulders, the group started counting in their heads. Some, following their heartbeats of fright, counted in fire, while others possessed a more brave precision. 3, 2, 1. The negative G-forces began as a small weight lifted from the chest, followed by a more demonic stretch among the spines. Plunging 42 kilometers straight through the aegis of Europa, the young group was in shock. A calming 5 minutes remaining, poised fruitless to every sparking instinct in gazebo. A gazebo whom, with a click, unveiled the blinding white ice, piercing with arrows of light into the straining eyes. Great branching cracks traveled like lightning through the ancient layers, all surprisingly distinct in the slightest variation of white. Thousands of drops had formed like stars along the bottom band of the glass, making a great parody of the sky, bright and vibrant, with shooting stars aiming up, living and escaping the friction of the glass ball. Now, more adjusted to the falling and the blinding ice, the group began noticing the cracks and crevices growing wider and more severe. First impact incoming. Light sacking of their heads began as gravity gradually got introduced. Second impact. A boom swung down their bodies, fluttering their heads, their hands and feet like leaves in the wind. Dark water came back and forth to slam the glass, swishing and swirling to bring a momentary sickness. The main lights of the gazebo were put out, and all that remained was a calm blue ring within the ceiling. A wave of relief hit the group as they freed themselves from the belts. Following the joyride, many laughters and applauds fought the nerves alongside a growing mania, unfortunately sewed into the human DNA. But it wasn't long before the blue ceiling light, just waiting to resume sobriety, faded away, and the faces smiling happily at each other turned gloomy as their neighbors slowly started to dematerialize and ebb into the darkness. With the victory of the silence, all awaited that same feminine voice of guidance. Minutes passed, every next minute all the more elusive, sinking deeper with their gazebo into darkness. The uneasy minds spiraled on, slowly forgetting the sense of time, lost in anxious nothingness. "What is that?" a true voice called among the unseeing, rekindling a common direction. The group all turned towards the voice, which now came from up against the glass. "What is that?" A small blue dot emerged floating, twinkling to their amazement. And like flies to a light bulb, mesmerized, the group scrambled up and glued one side of their face towards the stinging cool glass, slightly tilting. The gazebo packed the group even tighter together. Humble in the presence of nothing more than a small blue dot, the group suppressed their breath, trying not to scare whatever it was, lingering dead, yet alive right on their squashed cold noses. But the light, in some way or another, felt out of place and unreal, like a mirage as tempting as it was seducing. After a bold stare, Eric thought he saw the dot pulsating, but questioning the credibility of his sight, he turned away. And there he caught it. Just a hint of magic purple light in the dark ceiling. The star of Bethlehem was shining upon them, and there was no questioning. Unknowing to the paralyzed group, an animate purple ellipse on the ceiling had been watching, and now spoke. Cetea Fulminare, we call the pebble you now see. The colossus in the voice was mighty, yet still wielded the weight with poetry. The words landed like a horror upon the curious souls. Europa, a whisper was heard in the silence of awe. Please, have a look for yourselves. The purple burning O was the eye of God to the humans, and they, his pupils and worshippers, bowed to his wish. All except Eric, a Selah still facing the eye. He had heard the stories of that myriad soul, the heir of humanity, and he was afraid. What is it? A young woman turned halfway and asked. It is a privilege for you, so you shouldn't waste it. The well-meaning words satisfied the girl, and she looked back to the dot. Now, what would the purpose of bioluminescence be? Look at the patterns, look at the color. What is the cocoon trying to tell you? Europa said. Shy and callow, the group garnered bright ideas, but was too scared to speak. So Europa kept patient. As a first test of his group, seeing who among his students would be the first to amble. It's trying to intimidate, Sandra called, playing up her voice with confidence to balance her soul. Very good, Sandra. There is one reason for bioluminescence. That is one reason for bioluminescence, but not this one. A small low nod displaced her gold hair. But Europa wanted to lift her again. Do you know the second reason? A small thought was placed in the group before she lit up. Like an anglerfish, they use it to lure their prey. Satisfied, the purple eye was turned off, and a dreadful gasp evolved inside the group. A pause let the statement sink in, and with a few steps away from the glass, the group was peering with big wild eyes at the cocoon. Europa carried on the lesson, and from beneath the gazebo, a slim white crackling beacon shot out into the darkness infinitely, making a fast zoom, hungrily seeking, but finding not a single rock nor mist to rest upon. And as it was crackling, diamond seeds bloomed, raising small trees of lightning, illuminating the dark along its entire length, only to instantly wither again. The shimmering beauty. It was slowly shifting to the left, nearing the innocent blue dot. Please don't hurt it, a moan spewed, but to no avail. Europa had grown very fond of ignoring stupidity, especially from humans, and so he did. The blue got torched and outsaturated by the brilliant crystal white. A violent shaking started upon the dot. Stop, another hiss prayed. But as for God's wish, there was only one brush. A ramping buzz came from within the white beam as it was crackling further, and the color was shifting, from a white to a pink to a raspberry desire, all the way for that striking red. Like 12 Buddhas to a notion of torture and pain, the group cried out, spinning, looking for the murderer. That childish human moral, Europa merrily brushed off. Eric stared dead into the red with a familiar feeling which he couldn't escape, now only strengthened as a shadow emerged behind the dot. The red beam stopped, and from the dead blue cocoon, a blue lightning flashed, sparking, climbing, and quickly branching further out into the shadow. After the lightning came thunder, enormous notes producing the sound of whales, but stark and much deeper. The gazebo was picked up and shaken as the sound came in expanding fierce rotations. The group was tumbling, squeezing their chest and trying for a steady heartbeat. Soon, the king of Europa was all marked out, with massive tentacles dancing under a colossal head. The vivid cerulean ignited with lightning, mapping the skin in a hypnotic Atlantis. Some of the group members hid themselves from the sight, but in a moment the shaking ceased, and again the peace drew out even the most reclused. They all stood there alone, independent from God, reborn and curious of the world. That very human curiosity glowing in every individual, with a butterfly on top their finger, mirroring a sapphire painting between its wings. Not a breath was taken, and the massive blue shadow just lingered still in the ocean. Eric was fixated on a small black dot, which he took for an eye, and to him it felt almost like the Colossus was looking back at him. Soon it drifted away into the vast darkness, leaving the small aliens alone with their greed, love, and God. Europa's plan was a sounding success, but he still remained, soaking the language of his pupils, being as fascinated by the humans as his lesson has fascinated them. That's it. Thank you.